Izuku Midoriya. He is born with a quirk that everybody would think would be absolutely insane. Because when he's in the hospital, when he's just basically being born, well, the gravity all around them would begin to change. The chairs, the people, and all the furniture begins to feel a lot heavier, and the people have to exit the room as soon as possible because they can feel the quirk, they can feel the power, they can feel everything sinking in itself. They can feel everything quickly kind of breaking, and that includes this heavy weight that they are feeling on themselves. So of course they have to get the hell out of Dodge. They get out of the room just in time as all the furniture, all like the chairs and the bed and stuff like that, and of course this would include trying to, get Inko Midoriya out on time as well, but they can't actually get her out. And Izuku's quirk would crush everything in the room. But it actually doesn't affect Inko. It might sound odd, it might sound weird, but Izuku has a connection to Inko, being that is his mother, and it doesn't actually affect her. Or at least he somehow subconsciously makes it so that his quirk isn't affecting her at all. Now, for the other people, he doesn't actually know them. He doesn't know, who they are. He doesn't know what's happening, and he doesn't know like what's happening with his powers. So of course, it just automatically hurts them and hits them and almost kills them. But of course, they have to stay away from Izuku for a little bit because they really can't just go in and straight up get squished because of it. So they avoid the room for a little bit until Izuku's quirk kind of calms down, until his quirk kind of subsides, at least to an extent. And Izuku, well, he would be just going throughout his normal time as a baby, right? And this continues to be a factor. His quirk continues to be a factor throughout his life, and it continues to get more and more powerful. But as he gets older, he gets more and more control over it. And that's a big thing for Izuku, is getting control over this quirk, getting control over his powers, because he doesn't want anybody to get hurt at the end of the day. Last thing he wants is for somebody to die because he doesn't know how to control his powers properly. So he makes sure that he continues to kind of build upon his powers, build upon his strength, and get more and more powerful with everything he does. And as the time would go on, and as Izuku would continue through life, he would continue working with his quirk, not necessarily training with it, but working with it, being able to use this kind of gravitational field of some sorts. And it seems like Izuku continues to show that, his powers are ridiculous, like ridiculous, to the point that Izuku is just showing off these powers, like literally throwing the heaviest objects you can think of, and honestly just straight up just showing off this insane amount of raw strength that Izuku can show kind of as not his quirk, but as his actual strength. He can literally have the powers to pick up things that are insanely heavy, being able to turn them into nothingness, but then he throws them and they're basically the same weight they would always be, right? So Izuku is able to utilize his powers to that degree, and frankly, nobody really, I wouldn't say hates Izuku, but nobody would dislike. They would actually really like Izuku, but there would be a real competition there between Izuku and Bakugo all the way up until they're around 15 years old. And this, of course, gravity quirk would have a lot of different ways that he could really utilize basically the different powers that he could potentially give off. Now, obviously, he has the basic control of gravity manipulation, but there's so much more he can do with it. He has the ability to not only decrease or increase or kind of affect other people with his gravity, but there's so much more that he can unpack, so much more to this already insanely and, dare I say, godly power. And he continues to really play with that idea throughout this time, and he kind of awaits his just inevitable chance to go into UA. And that would, well, obviously be the UA entrance exam. But before that actually happens, after the day of middle school where they talk about what they're going to do, what jobs they going to do, are they going to be heroes, or are they going to do this? After that day, well, he would head off and go underneath this bridge. And as he heads off to and, well, underneath that said bridge, well, this is when he finds something and comes across something that would be absolutely terrifying. And that would be the Sludge villain. And the Sludge villain itself, well, he doesn't really stand that much of a chance against Izuku. But the reason for this has a lot to do with Izuku's ability to manipulate gravity and increase it upon the Sludge villain, or really decrease it upon himself to run away if he so chose to do so. But in general, he could flat out, just straight up, make the Sludge villain weigh an absolute ton, and he would be stuck to the ground, basically, unable to move at all, increasing the gravity of the Sludge villain by multiple times, and the Sludge villain just is unable to move. He struggles and tries to scratch and claw its way toward Izuku, saying that he needs his body, but Izuku just stands there and stares at him, saying that you're not going to heal, or you're not going to hit or hurt anyone else ever again. There is no body you will be taken, or you will be taking. There is nothing that is going to be happening in your regard. And of course, this is when All Might would eventually arrive, and All Might would help, knocking out the Sludge villain, not even realizing that the Sludge villain is borderline stuck in place. And he would basically tell Izuku, oh, you're okay, don't worry, there's nothing wrong, like, you're fine. You're all safe now. And Izuku kind of just goes along with it. He's like, oh, thank you so much, All Might. Can I have your autograph? Like, I was really terrified. He almost got me. And he keeps like kind of going on and on about it. And eventually All Might tells him, you know what, I'm happy that you're safe. And he just ends up leaving with the Sludge villain pieces. And Izuku, with obviously the autograph, finds it pretty funny that he got over on All Might on that one little piece. All Might basically thinking that he did the entire job and he saved the kid and, stuff like that. And Izuku found it to be pretty funny. Now, Izuku didn't really talk about much, or didn't talk about, what he could do or what he's capable of to All Might or anything like that. He just didn't really think about it at the time and thought it was kind of just funny to mess around and funny to make All Might think that he was the one that did everything, right? He's the one that handled the whole job. Now, this would lead him to his 10 months of training for the UA entrance exam. And that 10 months, it's pretty fruitful for Izuku. I mean, at the end of the day, this is something that Izuku definitely needed, like full focus training. And it allows him to kind of get better at his other aspects of his gravity quirk. Now, he obviously knows he can, make objects move, make people heavier, make objects heavier, lighter, and stuff like that. But one thing he really tries to get a hold of perfectly is his ability of self-levitation or flight, and also some other stuff where he basically can walk on walls, or basically just do like really good redirection with his gravity-like quirk. And those are like some things that he felt like it was going to be really good for day-to-day life. I mean, being able to fly to school, or fly there, or fly here or there pretty quickly, that right there, that's pretty useful. At the end of the day, that's pretty damn useful. So he really felt like, you know what, I need to master that. I need to master those aspects, because I already know how to basically manipulate gravity on a basic level. So let me master those things. And that's what Izuku does. Over the next 10 months, he has a pretty fruitful training sessions, leading him to actually going on to the UA entrance exam, passing the written portion, and then going on to the obviously the practical portion, which would be against a bunch of robots. And those robots would be splattered to the ground. Like, Izuku would, every single robot, make it squish flat. Like, literally squish flat. Izuku making these robots turn into like a piece of metal that is just flat, completely creamed on the ground. And Izuku does this to every single robot. Every single one he comes across. Every single last robot he comes across, he flattens it over and over and over again, leading to Izuku just absolutely destroying an absolute butt ton of robots. But as the 0 Point robot would come, and as the 0 Point robot would threaten a girl that is under a bunch of rocks, Izuku decides that he's not going to just, try and destroy the robot. He decides actually against that. He decides to actually, get all of the rocks and stuff off the girl and help her out by getting her out of harm's way, by basically levitating her and allowing her to get out of there to Recovery Girl ASAP. And this is when she's pretty shocked. Like, she's asked him after everything is said and done, what's his quirk? Like, what is his powers? In which he says that, oh, it's a pretty interesting one, and it's actually related to gravity. And he begins to like show off his powers just a little bit, and she's shocked to see this because she says, well, I have the same thing, but well, mine has, it's to the touch. And as she decides to touch him on the shoulder, he actually begins to float. And he's pretty impressed. He thinks, wow, you know what? That's pretty damn cool. I mean, he didn't expect anybody else to actually have a gravity-based quirk other than himself. So the fact that someone else has a gravity-based quirk, that's pretty damn awesome. And he introduces himself, obviously, as Izuku Midoriya, and she introduces herself as Ochako Uraraka. And Izuku says that it's been a pleasure, and he hopes to definitely, see what she's capable of at UA High School. And he would then just fly off as she just is in complete shock and awe at the things that Izuku can do. Like, his capabilities, his power. I mean, this is amazing. That's awesome to watch. And she's honestly just smitten at the fact that Izuku, is able to use powers similar to her, but to like a different degree. And Izuku, with his powers, of course, basically continues his kind of training. He continues his training here and there, all the way as the weeks would come up to eventually getting into UA High School. But throughout this time as well, he would help his mother with various different tasks and different things that he feels that, I could help with this because, my powers and my quirk and my capabilities. So he definitely helps out here and there in certain regards. And he would keep helping as he prepares for the actual UA High School, or to get into UA High School. And the first day of UA High School is something that Izuku is excited for. But what he doesn't know is that it's going to actually involve him actually showing off his quirk. And this right here, I mean, is perfect for Izuku. I mean, showing off his quirk in a quirk assessment, which Aizawa ends up telling them all what they're going to do, in which, by the way, Izuku got first in the UA entrance exam, and he will get first in the quirk assessment as well, because he throws the ball into infinity, and then he literally is faster than most, if not everybody there, because of his ability to lessen his gravity and also his ability to fly. And on top of that, I mean, anything to do with strength, I mean, it's off the charts. His ability, his grip strength, off the charts. His ability to throw a ball, off the charts. Everything that involves strength and even really speed and agility, I mean, he's at a different level. And every aspect he is showing off and showing that he is capable and also just massively better than everyone else, at least in the quirk assessment. I mean, he was showing off time in and time again that he had some insane amounts of power, and this makes him very, very popular. I mean, every single person there, like every person except for like Bakugo and Todoroki, are pretty fond of Izuku, thinking like, wow, this is insane. I mean, he has some ridiculous powers. Like, how are you even able to, utilize them? Is there any, like backlash to it? And Izuku says, yeah, I mean, of course there's backlash to it, but he's never really felt backlash to the degree of like really, really bad, right? He's never gotten like really sick or really hurt from like overuse of his quirk, because he pretty much can end a scenario pretty quickly. And yes, he's felt this backlash during training, because obviously when you train your quirk, you probably use it to a larger extent. But yeah, I mean, he's felt backlash or felt kind of the resistance of his own quirk before, but nothing crazy, right? And Izuku continues to like just talk about his quirk, and Aizawa would eventually like, shut them all up and tell them like, it's time to go, guys. Like, it's over and done with. This whole quirk assessment is finished, so you guys should just all leave. And that's exactly what they do, right? And Izuku would eventually just be ready to head back home, and then he would be also ready for their next bit of training. And their next bit of training would have a lot to do with something known as heroes versus villains training. But this is just another point of time that Izuku can show off what he can truly do, and another time where Izuku's going to show off what he can truly do. Now, in terms of being able to show off what he can do, I mean, this is a 2 versus 2. It's him and Ochaku Uraraka versus Tenya Ida and Katsuki Bakugo. I mean, this is going to be living proof of why he's so freaking good at scenarios like this, why he's so good at stopping things like this. Because when Izuku would go into that building, when he would face off with Bakugo, well, let's just say Bakugo doesn't stand a freaking chance. And the reason for this is because when Bakugo comes spiraling at him to hit him with an explosion, he tries to surprise Izuku. But even though he gets the jump on Izuku immediately basically just grounds him into the actual ground. Not like, a parent grounding you in your room, like literally grounds him, puts him right into the ground, and he's sitting there like, what the hell just happened? Like, I thought I got him. I thought I got the upper hand. I thought he didn't realize I was there. But out of nowhere, boom, he was in the ground, unable to move. And Izuku was already walking right by him, with Bakugo feeling so heavy that he can't even pick up his own arms. That's how Bakugo is feeling at this moment. And Izuku didn't even show off some of the other capabilities that he could possibly do. And as he finishes this, as he, obviously defeats Bakugo and, finishes the fight against him, he would then head off to the next person he has to deal with to touch the bomb. And that next person is Tenya Ida. And he defeats Tenya by just basically slowing him down drastically, making him weigh a lot more. And Tenya tries to fight back, but his ability to be quick and fast, it just goes out the window with Izuku. It just completely is just changed. Izuku makes it so he can't really move. It's tough for him to even just scratch and claw an inch toward Izuku. And everybody that's watching is thinking that this is ridiculous. Like, Izuku's power, I mean, it's arguably perfect for every one-on-one, if not every battle you could even think of. I mean, he is legitimately hero fight ready. Like, he's ready already to fight whoever. Like, it's kind of insane to even think about, because I mean, he's a student. Like, how could he already be prepared to fight anybody? But that's the truth. Izuku makes things that much harder on a villain, and he could honestly be one of the greatest support heroes too, in terms of supporting those while in a fight. I mean, imagine having a powerful teammate and then him slow down the entire battlefield, or him basically freeze the entire battlefield because of the ability to basically make them too heavy for them to actually move, forcing gravity upon them and making it so that they can't even get their best moves off. And the other, person, whoever that could be, just swoops in and defeats them all. Like, Izuku in his powers, I mean, it shows that he is hero fight ready, that he is 100% ready. And let's just say, All Might's watching this and he's thinking that this kid, I mean, is insane. I mean, there's no way that he even needed his help to fight that Sludge villain off. I mean, and then he thinks back and he wonders, why was the Sludge villain just standing still? Why was the Sludge villain not moving at that point? And then he realizes that when he defeated the Sludge villain to help Izuku, he didn't need the help. That Izuku had it handled, at least to an extent. He wasn't going to hurt the Sludge villain, but he stopped the Sludge villain entirely. And that just makes All Might think whoa, this kid, I mean, he's more prepared than he even thought in the first place, right? And Izuku, well, he just heads back with all of his teammates, stops the whole freeze, because obviously he doesn't want to, keep them basically frozen for the entire time, even though they're not actually frozen. They're just, really, really, really have a come to, gravity itself. But of course, Izuku knows that you can't just leave them there. So he helps out, gets them out of that kind of gravitational state. And then, that's it, right? They handle the heroes versus villains training, and then now it's time for them to kind of go on to that next part of their kind of UA journey, and that would be the USJ. The USJ is a big portion of what being a hero is going to be like, especially with the aspects of being a rescue hero. Being a rescue hero is very, very important and very, very big when you're trying to be a legitimate hero. Because at the end of the day, when you're being a rescue hero and you're trying to be a rescue hero or trying to rescue people, you have to be calculated, you have to be safe, you have to make sure everyone that you help out is, good, is okay. You need to make sure that all of them, are in a safe space, and all of them aren't going to be hurt or mangled or anything. And that's what they're going to be doing today. Or at least that's what they think they're going to be doing today. Because the the USJ, turns into basically a free-for-all with a ton of villains invading. All these portals would begin to open up, and Izuku Midoriya would be on the other end of it as well. He would immediately get sent through a portal with Asui and Mineta, but Izuku is able to quickly get out of the water by flying to a nearby boat, and then he sees Asui and Mineta as well as they get out of the water too, in which Asui would make a remark saying that she's pretty damn happy that he's with her here. In which Izuku makes a joke about, her flirting with him, but says, yeah, no, he understands. They could get out of this pretty simply, and he'll make it so that these other villains, they can't get out of the water at all. And then he would then inflict gravity upon the water and or the villains, and he would basically stop them from moving to a large degree, like genuinely stop them from moving to a large degree. And they would just be able to fly off and fly out of there pretty damn quickly. And this is when they get into a spot where Aizawa's fighting a bunch of villains and honestly is basically going to have to take on the Nomu, Shigaraki, and Kurogiri by himself. So Izuku does some help. He immediately would make it so all the villains were a lot slower and could barely move themselves, and Aizawa would knock them out insanely quick. After defeating them, Aizawa understands what's happening, but as he turns to basically tell Izuku to get out of here, that he has it handled, the Nomu would come charging at him, and the Nomu would almost land a punch on him, but Izuku would immediately stop him with his gravity quirk, immediately making him that much heavier, 3, 4, maybe even 5 times heavier, so that the Nomu can't actually inflict the punch onto Aizawa, which is kind of perfect timing, because if he didn't, Aizawa probably would have been in the hospital, in which Aizawa basically tells him thank you, and he would ask him if he can really hold that Nomu there the entire time, in which Izuku says yeah, that he can. I mean, the thing is strong, and this is the most resistance he's ever felt out of a creature or out of a person or out of anything, but he can. He holds the gravity upon the Nomu 5, 6 times, maybe even higher, making sure the Nomu can't even move, like not even an inch. So he basically stops the Nomu entirely, and Aizawa begins to basically handle the other villains, being that of Kurogiri and also Shigaraki, but mainly Shigaraki, in which he would fight Shigaraki, and it's pretty obvious that in terms of a fighting style and his ability with his own quirk, Aizawa is outlasting and also outclassing Shigaraki entirely, and this would also, prove that Shigaraki is falling short pretty damn quickly. Kurogiri realizes that with the reinforcements about to arrive, with All Might legitimately arriving as they speak, I mean, this is not good, that they should probably get out of here. But as Kurogiri goes to actually get a portal up and going, and as Kurogiri tries to get a portal for Shigaraki, he feels this weight weighing on him. His ability to even open portals, I mean, he's unable to actually even do so. It seems like his quirk isn't necessarily being cancelled, but his ability to actually utilize his portals seems to be 10 times harder than normal. As well, the Nomu is now being fought by All Might. Izuku is able to lift his gravity away from him, at least to an extent, only putting like, a little bit more gravity on him so that he can help with All Might, but he can basically shift his attention toward Kurogiri and Shigaraki, making it so that Kurogiri can no longer utilize his quirk, and with the help of Bakugo keeps Kurogiri on the ground permanently, or at least, for the time being. All the way up until they can get reinforcements and an ability to stop these people from leaving. And that's the same thing with Kurogiri and Shigaraki. Izuku completely smashing Shigaraki into the ground to the point where they cannot move, and with the help of Bakugo, with the help of Todoroki, and with the help of also Aizawa, they're able to hold them in the ground and hold them steady, so that after the Nomu is defeated by All Might, well, they have them to basically ready to go into prison, and that is exactly what happens. Izuku Midoriya was able to basically help take down these villains with an insane amount of power, with an insane amount of an ability that seems simple but is powerful beyond belief. And at the end of the day, Izuku is showing this quirk, this gravity quirk, and keeps showing it off over and over and over again throughout this entire USJ. Now, after everything is settled, after all the villains are captured, after Shigaraki is behind bars, of course, they do get a couple days off. Now, they would be preparing for something else, being that of the UA Sports Festival. And Izuku, well, he's excited for it. And when he goes up there to tell everybody, to give his little speech, I mean, this is when, at the end of the day, right, everybody's like excited to see what he could do. I mean, Izuku literally says like he's gonna show things to people that really are unknown to a lot of them, right? He's gonna show off an ability that is going to really make them wonder what he can truly do, what his capabilities truly are. But on top of that, they're all gonna put on a show. They're all gonna put on a great show that everyone's going to enjoy, and everyone's going to really want to relive day in and day out. And Izuku himself, he's just excited to really show off what he can do. And the first thing he gets a chance to do is the obstacle course race, obviously, right? The obstacle course race is pretty basic for him, especially since he has self-levitation and or flight. He just flies through it very easily. I mean, if he has to get over certain walls and stuff like that, he can straight up walk on walls too. But he just flies through every single obstacle, making it so Todoroki and Bakugo have to go full speed ahead to try to keep up. But Izuku makes it so they flat out cannot keep up, even if it's just adding a little bit more weight to their bodies than they're used to. Maybe 0.2 times, stuff like that, right? 0.2 more, you can say. Or actually, I guess it would be more like 1.2 times, not 0.2 times, because that's not how math works. But that's beyond the point. Now, just making him a little bit heavier, right? That's the idea, is making it a little bit, or making them a little bit heavier, not to the point that they smash themselves, into the ground, but they smash, they get stuck, sort of, right? They're not as fast when gliding on the ice. Bakugo is not as quick when shooting through the sky with his explosions, and that's something that Izuku makes to be very a very good point for him to approach. And Izuku just continues his absolute insanely fast flight all the way until he is the winner of the obstacle course race. Now, the cavalry battle, I mean, nothing really is any different in the cavalry battle with how he's able to approach things, because when he enters the cavalry battle with Ochako, with Tokiyami, with Mei Hatsume, I mean, this is something that he could either make it so that all their gravities, or everyone's gravity that tries to approach them, basically goes to either to the point that they float up, or they get completely stuck in the ground. Or he could even fly up with all of his teammates so that they can't even be touched in general. And Izuku is like the perfect person to kind of keep people at bay, keep people away from them. He even could create like a barrier of some sorts that like there's a certain range of gravity that he's creating, making it so that if anybody enters this range that's around them, I mean, they immediately just cannot move. And that right there is what Izuku is able to do and capable of doing to a large extent. And that's what he does. and they're able to protect the 10 million point band, right? To protect that 10 million point band pretty damn easily. And this would lead them to, obviously, winning the cavalry battle as well, putting them in a situation and a kind of approach for the 1 versus 1s. And this would obviously give them a chance at really being noticed. And Izuku, he has full intention of being noticed. So when he's told by a bunch of people that Hitoshi Shinso has some sort of mind control quirk and that he should just not speak to him, Izuku takes it very seriously and he's listening entirely. So when Hitoshi tries to talk to him, Izuku would just immediately make it so that Hitoshi would begin, or Hitoshi Shinso would begin to kind of float. And as he starts floating, Izuku would run toward him, grab him by the leg, and toss him right out of the ring and make him go right back to normal. And he would just immediately smack outside on the ground and be eliminated via ring out. And immediately, Shinso's pissed. I mean, he's like, damn, like, are you serious? Like, he really just that quick, that easily? And he even tells Izuku that he's lucky that he's so gifted. He's lucky that he was gifted such a great quirk. But of course, he's not. But Izuku tells him that his quirk is great. It's very impressive. And if he didn't have any, like, people telling him what his quirk was like or what his quirk did, I mean, he might have been in trouble. But luckily enough, this isn't some run-of-the-mill fight on the street. This is a kind of a sports festival. So he got the heads up on what his quirk was, and now he will always know what his quirk is, so he'll never get the best of him. So Izuku tells him that he was never going to make a name off of him, not make a name off of, himself. He's got to make a name, somewhere else. But his potential as a hero is insane. I mean, at the end of the day, his quirk is very good for something like hero work. He just has to get in the right spot. In which Izuku would just kind of shrug him off and tell him that he wishes him the best, and he would just leave. Izuku would head off and go back into the stands as he awaits his next fight, which would be against Todoroki. And while he was walking to the stage, he would be approached by Endeavor telling him to basically get his own son to basically use his fire side. And Izuku wonders, like, why do you want him to use part of his quirk so badly? Like, why isn't he using that part of his quirk? In which Endeavor tells him that he should just listen to what he's saying. He should just try to get him to utilize the quirk and stop asking so many damn questions. And Izuku shrugs his shoulders and says, all right, sounds good. I won't get him to use that side of his quirk. In which immediately Endeavor tells him to stop. That if he basically tells him, like, if he tells him why he doesn't, what's going on, that will he try to get him to utilize the fire side. And Izuku says, all right, you know what, sure. In which Endeavor obviously does not give the full truth, but just says that him and his son have a rocky relationship, and his son, doesn't really enjoy his presence to a degree, and he's being a little kid about it. In which Izuku looks at him and looks at obviously Endeavor, and he's like, yeah, sure. He tells him, yeah, I'll do that. I'll get him to utilize his fire side, but I mean, you're probably not gonna like the way I'm going to do it. In which immediately he's like, what are you talking about? And then immediately Izuku would just leave, and he would begin his fight with Todoroki on the stage. And that fight would be a pretty fun one to watch in terms of Izuku's just his ability to move around, his kind of flying, and his ability to, like, try to approach Todoroki and even break through some of the ice that is getting thrown at him. He's definitely using a style that is more not user friendly, but watcher friendly. At the end of the day, he normally just stops the fight pretty quickly with his gravity, but this time around he's really trying to, like, stall the fight out, make Todoroki use some of his power, and eventually he tries to convince him to use his fire side. He tells him that he talked to his father, and his father just spewed a bunch of BS about how, they don't like each other or they're not on good terms, but he knows that it's so much more than that. But he wants to tell Todoroki, and he tells Todoroki that that fire side is not a side necessarily. It is one quirk. His ice and fire, it is one quirk that they come together, right? And though that power is his own power, and he continues to try to get Todoroki to use that side, and eventually he does. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. He was never going to win this fight, and he was never going to really, have an easy time even trying to beat someone like Izuku. But Izuku getting to him to utilize even more of his power is something that is pretty cool, right? And Izuku is pretty happy with what happened, and Izuku kind of just goes along with defeating him, and then goes on to his next kind of battles. Against Tenya Ida, it's a very simple one as well. He already defeated him before, and defeating him again is no chore at all. And in terms of Bakugo does come out with a long-range explosive attack that forces Izuku to dodge and makes him kind of try to like think on immediately. He honestly gets caught off guard initially, and Bakugo tries to make that opening before he could utilize that gravity quirk that he's been utilizing. But of course, even though he does catch him off guard, it doesn't mean that Izuku is going to be off guard forever, and he's able to catch Bakugo immediately with his quirk and basically defeat him in one swift maneuver. And that's a pretty easy thing to really look at, and Izuku just easily handles Bakugo and shows that there is a big difference between him and everybody else, a big difference between him and all the other heroes. And everybody's talking like, wow, Izuku's quirk might be like the most insanely powerful thing they've seen in a while. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a gravity-like quirk that can be inflicted on other people without even touching them. Like, that's insane. I mean, imagine using it to capture villains. You could capture a villain so easily, and they don't even know about the USJ and what he did during it, and that is the truth. He could capture villains that easily. And Izuku just, he's like, yeah, he kind of just accepts his first place. He thanks everybody for coming. He hopes that it was a very entertaining thing, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of gives his little speech. But of course, we all know what's coming next. And that is obviously the kind of internships. And that's what Izuku is looking forward to, right? He wants to train. He wants to work hard. He wants to get better. And going through those internships is going to help him get a lot better. Because at the end of the day, I mean, these internships are a big part of what's to come. Because at the end of the day, he might be strong and powerful, but he could always learn something new, always can learn something from other people. So might as well get ahead of it, right? And might as well kind of try to get a hold and learn of some new things from various different people. Now, with all that said, Izuku does have a lot of choices. Where does he go? Who does he work with? There's a lot of people he could potentially work with. And Izuku continues to kind of search his kind of, his way and search everything that he possibly can. But one person actually does catch his eye. And that one person is Mirko. It actually surprises him because he's like, my quirk isn't that similar at all to yours. So I wonder why she would offer me. But he decides, you know what? It's probably a good thing because his hand-to-hand combat's kind of, tragic at best. So honestly, being able to learn from her, being able to defend himself even if he didn't have a quirk, you could say, right? So he couldn't rely on it, is something that he believes is a big deal. So he starts working with her, and he learns that she actually wanted him to come because of, well, one, his hand-to-hand combat absolutely sucks. And that's something that she believes that someone as powerful as him should hone in on and get better at. But two, because she knows that he can inflict gravity upon her and make her training even better. In which he thinks, let's be honest, like, you called me here because you wanted to basically get a better training session in which she has to admit that is kind of true. But Izuku, he understands. I mean, come on. She's built on fighting. She wants to fight. She wants to get stronger. She's like some anime characters that he possibly or could possibly know, right? A lot of these people, I mean, they just want to fight. They just want to get better. They want to get stronger. And Mirko is definitely one of them. And Izuku, he goes, you know what? All right, sounds good. As long as you're teaching me how to defend myself with my fists, with my kicks, and all those things, he doesn't see why not. In which that's exactly what she does, helping him for days on end with basically learning different ways of fighting, especially with or without his quirk. And on top of that, he applies a 1.5 times gravity kind of multiplier upon her so that she can get a ton of amazing training. And that gravity continues to go up and up and up as she gets used to it, and she becomes significantly stronger, like significantly stronger. And everybody everybody there or that works with her to an extent realizes that she's vastly stronger than normal, and it's pretty damn impressive. Who would have thought that her quirk and Izuku's quirk would be so compatible? I mean, the fact that he's able to inflict gravity upon her in small increments so that she can continue, getting stronger, getting more powerful and stuff like that. I mean, who would have thought? In which, of course, this lasts for a multitude of days, probably like 5 to 6 days, almost to a week. But as they're coming to their kind of their conclusion with their training, well, let's just say something happens that, isn't the best. Something happens that is a little bit unfortunate, and by a little bit, I mean a lot, and that is Tenya Ida being in the hospital because Izuku Midoriya wouldn't actually be there to help him in the hero killer fight, unfortunately leading to Tenya being vastly injured. And this would really, really be horrible because a lot of them who are sent back to from internships would basically be grieving over Tenya's situation. I mean, he might not be dead, but he's damn well hurt. So him being in the hospital makes all of them feel extremely bad. They never thought a moment like this would come so soon, but Aizawa tells them that this is reality. You signed up to be a hero. This is what happens to people who are heroes. You put your life on the line for those who don't have the ability to do so day in and day out. And Tenya, well, he got hurt in the feat of battle. He got hurt because he wanted to be a hero. And that right there is what we should really kind of holster up. That's something that we should really hold on to and realize that we could be the heroes that we want to be. It's just going to take sacrifice, and it's always going to be hard, and it's always going to be difficult. And everybody hears this and they think, you know what? Let's do it for Tenya, right? Let's do this for Tenya Ida. And that's all of them think about in their minds. And Aizawa tells them, you know what? Good. I'm glad you guys feel that way, because now it's time for them to get ready for their final exams, which their final exams are a lot of different things, right? A multitude of different things. You could say that it starts with the written portion, which the written portion's pretty basic in terms of what they have to learn, what they have to do, what they have to figure out and stuff like that. But the practical is something to behold of, because Izuku Midoriya this time around doesn't actually fight All Might. What he did with Mirko in terms of training was perfect, because the person he fights is Aizawa, and it's going to be Aizawa versus Izuku and Momo Yaoyorozu. And this right here is an insanely good matchup. And Izuku tells her that yes, it is going to be difficult when they are, unable to utilize their quirk, but Aizawa doesn't know something that he does, right? Aizawa thinks that, well, Izuku, he went over there and he helped Mirko just get training in. And Aizawa even had a conversation with Izuku about it. And Izuku told him, like, yeah, it was lame because, well, of course, Mirko just wanted to get better training in and stuff like that. And he helped her with his gravity, in which he asked, like, did he even learn anything? And Izuku says, somewhat, but not to the extent that he wanted to. And this was a mild fib. This was a mild, mild lie. But at the same time, was kind of the truth. I mean, of course, he didn't learn everything he wanted to. He learned a decent amount. But Aizawa doesn't know that Izuku has been preparing for hand-to-hand combat and, well, foot-to-face combat as well. And Izuku makes it very clear to Momo that he won't know and that they're more prepared than they think. And, of course, this would be a hard matchup, no matter what. But once he gets that opening, once he can get the opening by utilizing that martial arts and utilizing the help of Momo's plan to actually, subdue Aizawa. I mean, this right here, is going to be a spectacle, because Izuku lands a kick to Aizawa's face with an opening from Momo Yaoyorozu that would eventually get his quirk back, and Izuku would immediately plant Aizawa into the ground with his gravity quirk, and he would wrap capture tape around Aizawa, and they would be called the winners. And Momo would be extremely excited that they won, and Aizawa is genuinely impressed. He tells Izuku that it seems like he was already kind of a leg up on what everyone thought he would be, and Aizawa said that he was put in his in this group, to fight Aizawa, because they thought that he would be too reliant on his quirk. But it seems like he was smart enough to kind of get ahead on that, and he was smart enough to get that idea and really run with it, because Izuku really put pressure on the idea of him getting better at hand-to-hand combat. Even though he might not need it in the near future, it is always good to have. In which Izuku says, yeah, he knows. And he had a feeling that something like this would happen, even though he didn't know, this specifically was going to happen. He tells Aizawa that he understands that knowing hand-to-hand combat and martial arts and stuff like that is very important. Because at the end of the day, you never know when you're not going to be able to utilize your quirk to its fullest extent, and having an ability to really protect yourself, that right there is very important. In which Aizawa nods his head and says that the kid is more prepared than they even thought in the first place, and he can't wait to see what else he's capable of in the near future, especially because they're all going to be going to the forest training camp to get some of the best training in you could possibly even imagine. And eventually they would hop on that bus, they would leave off toward a nearby cliff of the forest training camp, and they would stand there listening to Aizawa and the Wild Pussycats, and they would all be talking, and saying different things, and eventually they're pushed off the cliff, instating the true training of the forest training camp. But how will the forest training camp go? How will the rest of the time that Izuku spends as a hero go as well? Well, you're gonna have to find out in the next and part 2 of 2, or the final part of What If Deku Had a Godly Gravity Quirk. Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya is, headed off to the forest training camp, or, he gets shoved off a mountain that is going to allow him to get headed to the forest training camp. Now, they have to take down a multitude of monsters, and dealing with those monsters isn't the hardest thing in the world, and dealing with kind of those stone-like or earth-like creatures is definitely not their biggest concern. Their biggest concern is when they arrive and they have to abide to a very, very strict training regimen. A training regimen that will make even Izuku ache and scream out in pain, because for 2 weeks straight, that is all they're doing. They are flat out working hard, and just training to get stronger, training to gain more control over their quirk, and training to just be more prepared. And Izuku's quirk, yes, it is already massively powerful, but there are so many different things that he could potentially utilize that haven't really been shown just yet, and Aizawa believes that he can truly utilize these aspects and utilize them to a high level, a high degree, and that right there makes it so Aizawa pushes the mantle and pushes kind of the idea of him working harder very, very heavily. Like, it is no slacking, no kind of holding back, no nothing. He pushes forward hard as hell, and he makes every single person gain power that they couldn't even imagine to a large extent. For 2 weeks straight, all they're doing is working on their longevity with their quirks. Bakugo is seeing how many explosions he can truly create in a short period of time. Todoroki is trying to figure out how to properly utilize his fire and ice quirk together and utilize it a lot of the time. Kirishima tries to basically utilize his hardened quirk to a high degree, and this quirk basically make him as durable as possible. Every single person has their own little thing, and every single person has basically that hard work ahead of them, and that includes Izuku. Izuku has a ton of hard work ahead of him, and it's basically utilizing his gravity quirk in different ways. For starters, utilizing it basically 24/7. Have him sleep while floating in the air, completely controlled. Have him just be able to, or have him training in heavier gravity, if that's 1.2 times or 1.5 times or even 2 times the normal gravity. Have him train under that effect all the time and make him get used to it, so that he's prepared for anything that could get thrown his way. And then on top of that, he's even working on a new super move, that will basically change a ball itself into basically a black hole. He would throw a small ball, and enacting a different version of gravity upon it would lead to a kind of an aura of some sorts that would suck everybody in and make it so that they are stuck there entirely. Not a black hole in the sense of like, get sent off into nothingness, but a black hole in a sense of basically gathering up all these people and making them completely and utterly stuck. And for 2 weeks, they work on these things. For 2 weeks of massively, very difficult and hard work, they go through absolute hell, and is to really prepare themselves for what's to come. And what they don't know is when they're actually going to be arriving back at, or basically back into the city, but arriving back at UA, they would be seeing that there is a fight currently taking place, a fight that is between All Might and All For One. And Izuku is in shock watching as this fight is occurring, and he looks to his side to hear a rumbling of some sort, and it's a Nomu. A Nomu comes crashing into the bus they're currently in, and it tips over the bus entirely. And Izuku immediately helps everyone out and helps everyone basically get out of the bus. But on top of that, he's helping other students and also Aizawa and other teachers fend against these Nomus. And Aizawa basically tells everyone to get to safety, not to worry about the heroes or the teachers, that they can handle their own. So that's what they do. They get out of harm's way and they head off to a nearby building that will be somewhat safe. But the thing is, Izuku can't kind of get rid of the feeling that he should be out there, that he should be helping, that he should be doing something to try to either help All Might or help other people that are being basically attacked by these Nomus. He doesn't know if he should, but he knows that he can. Like, he has the power to basically help anybody here, and he feels like he should totally and for sure be using it. But right now, he's not. He's holding back. He's watching all of this unfold, and he's sitting there not doing a single thing, and he can't help it. He can't help but think that he should be out there. And as he looks, as Aizawa continues to fight, he flies out there to help Aizawa, helping Aizawa out with different Nomus and different villains that are currently, just taking advantage of the chaos. And Izuku would eventually ignore Aizawa's warnings and fly off to where All Might currently is. He would then utilize his gravity-like quirk to give All Might an opening that would stop All For One, and an opening that would basically halt All For One from blocking an attack, and leading to All Might landing a clean United States of Smash, knocking him clean out. And Izuku would immediately after helping would fly off before anyone else would even notice. He would get back with Aizawa, and Aizawa would look at him in a very angrily way, and he would be frustrated with him, but he knows the kid just means well. So he mildly ignores it and tells him that, well, he's definitely going to have to make up for that when they when they go back to school. And that's definitely what he's going to have to do, because when the dorms and all those things are instated, he's forced to clean the dorms day in and day out, almost every single day by himself. And Izuku is a little bit frustrated that he has to do this, but he understands that he has to make an example out of Izuku. But at the same time, Izuku just doesn't like the idea that he's being punished for really doing a good job. But with that said, Izuku goes through his little punishment, and they all move into the dorms at UA High School, and they prepare themselves for whatever is to come in the near future. And whatever is to come, well, that is, for starters, more training. Because super moves is something that Izuku and many others are currently working on, and that would include Izuku's black hole. A black hole that allows him to basically stop a large group of villains at any moment's notice by literally just throwing a singular ball into the battle. Now, this is a super move that obviously is pretty self-explanatory for the most part, but he basically utilizes this only if there's a large group of people. But if there's like only one person, or he has to lock down one person or something like that, I mean, it's very easy for him to handle. And as these super moves are being created, as all the training continues to be fruitful, Izuku is now in preparation to get ready for the actual provisional hero license exam. Something that Izuku is very excited for. Now, as they prepare for this exam and as they head off to this exam, they all realize that there is no kind of friends and all this stuff in this type of in this game. And even Bakugo makes that very clear, saying all these people think they have the upper hand on them because of one thing, because they know their quirks, because they know their powers, and because they have seen them at the UA Sports Festival. But this is now their time to prove that there is no upper hand here. There is no upper little chance that they can beat them. And there's a reason why UA is at the top and every other school falls way below them. In which Izuku hears this, and this is the first time Izuku has ever agreed with Bakugo in his life. He even basically speaks up, saying that they think that they have that upper hand. They think that they really, really got us figured out. But what they don't know is that we've been training blood, sweat, and tears day in and day out, and there is no upper hand here. The only people that have the upper hand is us. In which Bakugo looks at him and rolls his eyes and says that that's basically what he said, in which Izuku shrugs, and they all head off to the provisional hero license exam, awaiting their first test. And their first test is actually a pretty basic one. It's with dodgeballs and tagging people that have lights, and as long as you eliminate 2 people, you are guaranteed to go on to the next round. In terms of Izuku, this is a very simple task. He makes it so 2 people can literally not move. He tags them both, and he even does this for his other teammates too, forcing a lot of them to be unable to move, or at least in pairs of 2 be unable to move. And he gets a lot of his teammates the tags that they need, and the next to the next exam in terms of what they all need. Now, in terms of the next exam, it is perfect for Izuku, because Izuku's entire quirk allows him to kind of defy gravity itself, making it so that they can not only create the camp a lot quicker with really solid and heavy materials, but on top of that, he can straight up save people under horrible rubble that he can literally keep from literally falling on anybody, and he can do this the entire time, rescuing a ton of people. And everyone's kind of like, you know what, this is pretty crazy. Like, this kid's pretty damn smart, and he's pretty damn impressive at the end of the day. I mean, at the end of the day, he is showing off exactly why a lot of these people, a lot of these heroes and all the above believe that he will be that next future hero, that next top level hero. And a lot of them believe this, and Izuku is showing exactly why they would believe it. Now, Izuku himself, of course, is just preparing, for the best. And that's what he's always done. He prepares, helps his classmates, helps his teammates, helps everyone that's there. And eventually the villains, or the fake villains with Gang Orca, would eventually arrive. Now, initially, one of the students of a different school would think that he could handle it all on his own. And quickly, the tables would turn, and Gang Orca would show why he is far from a joke. And, well, with Inasa and Todoroki basically biting at each other's heads, it seems like it's up to Izuku to really step up. And that's what he does. Izuku Midoriya stands there in front of a giant army, throwing a ball toward the giant army of villains, and they all get immediately sucked into the said pseudo black hole. And then Gang Orca looks shocked as he's unable to move entirely. Izuku would tell him that his body will start feeling fatigue as his weight would climb from its normal weight to something that of 1.5 times, to 2 times, to 3 times, to 4. And as it climbs higher and higher, he'll start feeling his legs buckle. He'll start feeling his arms feel like absolute anchors weighing him down. And then slowly he'll be brought to his knees, unable to move entirely, unable to do anything. And Gang Orca collapses to the ground, struggling, trying to stay on his feet. And Izuku tells him the more he struggles, the more the weight will continue to pile on, and the more it will feel as if there's 1,000,000 pounds sitting on his shoulders, as if the weight of the world begins to strangle him. In which immediately Gang Orca's in shock to hear this, that this kid, I mean, that is a pretty intense thing to say in a training session, but Izuku is just holding him still. And yes, as Gang Orca resists, he adds a little bit more weight, a little bit more, and casually a little bit more, just so that Gang Orca doesn't feel like, yeah, I can get out of here if I just press a little bit harder. And this would lead them to the end of their Provisional Hero License exam, and it would also lead Izuku to finishing as one of the top people in that exam. Because, well, for one, Gang Orca basically sings his praises for how he approached things, but a lot of these other people that were watching, I mean, they could say with full-on confidence that Izuku Midoriya is ready. He is flat out ready to not only rescue people, but take on some of the more terrifying villains that could possibly be out there. Now, of course, Izuku believes that to be the truth as well, and after this is all said and done, he gets his Provisional Hero License exam, Provisional Hero License, excuse me. Now, with him having that license, there's a work study or work studies that could be potentially ahead of them. Now, for starters, Izuku has a chance with the rest of his class to meet the Big Three. The Big Three includes Nejire, Tamaki, and also Mirio Togata, other known as Lemillion. And Lemillion, well, he basically has his other members of the Big Three ramble on about this or that, and one of them, you know, not rambling at all, like literally being completely and utterly silent. But eventually he says the best way to test them is to fight them, so he tells them all to fight them, or fight him. In which Aizawa would eventually tell Izuku that he's not gonna be allowed in this fight. In which Izuku wonders, like, why? What do you mean? Like, let me, you know, test my abilities. In which Aizawa tells him that there is no need, that we know where you are at, and it's possibly to the point where you probably will make this exercise a little bit obsolete. Now, of course, Mirio proceeds to whoop on everybody in Class 1A, and Izuku's the only one that is left over. And frankly, even Mirio is not necessarily confused, but he is very, very interested. I mean, this kid, he's that strong, so much so that Aizawa believes that he shouldn't participate in this kind of test. He's interested. He wonders, what is this kid like? How good is he really? Is he that strong? Is he that powerful? In which he does ask him to face one-on-one and see what he's truly capable of. And when this fight would ensue, when Aizawa would actually decide to allow it to happen, Izuku begins to show that his quirk is borderline unfair. Because when Mirio thinks that he has the speed advantage, he would lose it in an instant. When he would think he would have the strength advantage, he would lose it in an instant. Gravity pressuring on his back, on his arms, and on his legs, and on his body more and more and more. And let's just say, this feeling of kind of like this obvious idea of there's no way he could really win is something that begins to overwhelm Mirio until Aizawa stops the fight entirely. And Aizawa says that he's seen enough, and he's sure that Mirio has seen enough, because they're going to cut this short. There's no point in continuing this fight. There's no point in showing more of what they can do against each other. And he tells Mirio that this kid might just be the future of Hero Society, and there's a reason why he is at the point he's at. There's a reason why his power is to the point it is, and it seems like he might even outclass a third year at the top of his game. In which, of course, Mirio is shocked about this, but he's also like weirdly like impressed. He's not mad about it. He's not arrogant about it. He's not upset about it. He honestly thinks this is true, that this kid might just be outclassing him. But on top of that, he's thinking, this is amazing. The fact that they have a hero with this type of potential, someone with this type of potential, and being only a first year, imagine how strong he will be when he graduates. Imagine how strong and imagine the potential he'll have after he graduates. But he can do so much now as well, and Mirio knows this, and immediately would tell him that he knows that Sir Nidai would want to meet the kid, and that's exactly what happens. Izuku Midoriya would head off to meet Sir Nidai for a potential chance at being in his agency, or as a work study kind of sidekick hero for his agency. And he goes through a ton of tests for Sir Nidai, because Sir Nidai doesn't really know him like that. He doesn't really know of him. He sort of knows of him, he knows some things, but Izuku shows off his capabilities, his obviously love for All Might himself, because, you know, he's a big fan of All Might, and also just some other things as well, being able to show Sir Nidai his potential and what he's truly capable of. And Sir Nidai quickly realizes why Aizawa believes that this kid might even be at a higher level than even Mirio, and Mirio is borderline a top 10 hero if he just, you know, graduated right now, that he would already be basically a top 10 hero. And it's kind of crazy to think about that Izuku is at that level, and Izuku proves day in and day out why he is, because, well, he would talk to Sir Nidai about various ways that he could definitely affect the battlefield in terms of dealing with hero-like scenarios or rescue-like scenarios. And he would also explain that if he needs somebody captured, locked down, unable to move, and in a bad spot to the point where, you know, like, they can actually capture him, they can actually handle him, they can actually, you know, deal with him and put him behind bars, his quirk is perfect for that. In which, of course, this is when Sir Nidai basically tells him, like, you know what? You're right. That is the perfect quirk. You have some very impressive powers, and powers that could potentially lead us to actually doing a far better job against some villains that we normally just weren't able to find or weren't able to handle. And the one that he basically he tells to Izuku that is very important that they take care of is Overhaul. Someone they've been looking for quite a while, and he doesn't expect to find him necessarily, but if they do, he knows that Izuku can shut it all down, completely make Overhaul just unable to move, to the point where Overhaul can no longer use his quirk, but also be easy to capture if they come across him. And who would have known, and who would have thought that one day during a patrol, that's exactly what would happen. And, well, Izuku even makes, I wouldn't say a game out of it, but kind of a weird, odd, distracting joke out of it. Because when they come across Overhaul and a little girl by the name of Eri. And as Izuku watches as Eri runs into his arms, fearful for her own life, he would immediately make it so that she begins floating into the air. And Izuku is in shock. What's happening? Oh my, is she okay? Is that her quirk? Does she know how to use it? In which Overhaul is like, I don't know. This is the first time I'm seeing this. In which Izuku acts concerned, acting like, oh, we gotta help her, and then you guys can get on your way. And Izuku tries to grab her, but she goes up faster. And he asks Overhaul, does he have anything, to get up there? Anything at all? In which Overhaul would then drop his guard just for a brief moment, and Izuku would immediately make it so Overhaul is floating in the air away from everything, and he can no longer control himself. He makes it so Eri floats back down calmly right into his arms, and he tells Eri that everything's okay now, and that Overhaul himself can no longer hurt her. In which Aries in shock. Can he get down from there? Is he gonna get out and hurt us? And Izuku's like, no, don't worry about that. Overhaul is completely under control, and they have already called for reinforcements. And with reinforcements arriving, with Izuku being able to utilize his gravity quirk in a way that his hands can never touch one of the people, or one of the police officers, or one of the heroes that can basically capture him and put quirk canceling cuffs on him. It's a perfect scenario to where Overhaul is shut down and completely defeated in a matter of seconds, and it's all because of Izuku being in the right place at the right time. And this would lead them into defeating the entire base of the Shihazaikai, because the Shihazaikai base is a bit of trouble. Let's just say that. Now, I'm not saying that they wouldn't be able to handle it, and with the help of Izuku and his quirk and his ability to kind of give openings for other people to fight alongside each other, it would definitely be helpful and definitely be beneficial. But overall, Izuku knows that it's never super simple to take down an actual organization or an actual base as this is, and he knows, like every other hero would know, that they have to really play this with caution and with strategy, and that's what they do. They don't go in all gung-ho. They go in being smart, being intelligent, and they handle their business, defeating everybody in the Shihazaikai base and handling the basically the complete capture of the Shihazaikai gang entirely. And this right here would be the end of an era for these kind of villains, and an end of an era for another large villain, or a large villain syndicate that many have been hunting for a very, very long time. And now this would lead Izuku into continuing his studies and his training. And of course, he does his training with his class, being that there is Class 1A versus Class 1B training, in which Izuku faces off with 5 different Class 1B members, or actually 4 different Class 1B members, with the inclusion of the one and only Hitoshi Shinso. But Izuku shows that his kind of buildup of power, his strength that he's at now, puts him at a totally different level, to the point where he straight up enacts gravity upon all of them and just captures them almost instantaneously, basically by himself. And this is when Izuku he realizes, like, his powers, they are so beneficial for this world, so beneficial for everybody who walks on it, so beneficial for everybody who lives all together, because he truly believes that he can help out as much as he possibly can. And as the years go by, as he goes through his 2nd and 3rd year, helping out everybody, helping out every single person, and even taking down a giant monstrous creature that they didn't know was sitting in the mountains. And of course, they don't have to necessarily take him down, being able to basically get this monster that they don't necessarily know the name of, but we know as Gigantomachia, basically lifting him with his quirk, making it so that he gets put into a safe facility where he can, stay for now. And he hasn't done anything wrong necessarily, so they make sure to treat him with the utmost respect and the utmost kind of chance to figure out what he truly is. And Izuku helps with that as well, helps with the containment of Gigantomachia. But in all honesty, Izuku helps on almost every single front. In terms of broken buildings and the cleanup of those buildings, he uses his gravity his gravity quirk to basically help in the recovery of that building, or those buildings. In terms of building different buildings themselves, or helping in creation of different things, Izuku is massively helpful with the kind of change of gravity on all different items, being able to place those items in said locations at certain weights and make it so that they are sturdier, or basically less in terms of weight, so that they can be handled easier with the construction workers and so on. And on top of that, he is so helpful in capturing villains and or kind of police work, because Izuku can straight up make it so they're unable to move, and they can be placed in prison without any hiccups, without any kind of things to go wrong. And what's ironic is Izuku's not very flashy. He handles things and handles business in one way, right? Very efficiently. And unfortunately, that leads to a lot of time where Izuku isn't the most entertaining hero in the world. He handles villains and saves people very simply, and handles them to the point where a lot of people look at it and they're like, well, how creative was that, right? Was that really cool to watch? I mean, yeah, I mean, for the people that he saves, they're probably grateful as hell. But in terms of people that are watching, they're thinking, well, you know, it wasn't the most amazing save in the world, and maybe he's kind of, you know, just relying too heavily on his quirk, or kind of doing it the very simple way, which everybody can, you know, respect that, but it's not, you know, fun to watch, which in this hero society, we know that there's a lot to do with, you know, your appearance, the way you look, the way you act. And we know why All Might was, you know, very boisterous and very, you know, I am here, or I'm here to save you type of thing, because that's what made people not only feel better in terms of a possible save from a hero, but that's what sold everything. That's what sold everything as the number one hero. So yes, Izuku may never scratch and claw his way to that number one ranking, but he knows out of everybody there that he's the only one with this godlike potential of having a quirk that is massively insane, like massively powerful, being that Izuku's quirk is ridiculously powerful and frankly, honestly, world breaking. I mean, changing the absolute foundation of what this world, or what Japan is, and really the world, as he continues to explore the world itself to help others all around it. It is groundbreaking what his quirk does. It is groundbreaking what his quirk is capable of, and it is groundbreaking to see the kind of hero he becomes. Even if he never reaches that number one status, he can still know that he truly is some hero to some random person out there all alone, maybe on a blog or something along those lines. He might not be the most kind of relevant hero in the world, but he knows that he could be a hero that will save everyone, just like All Might. And that's something that Izuku can hold on to for a very, very long time, and something that a lot of other heroes who know the kid and know what his intentions are and know how great he is as a hero can hold on to as well. Because Izuku Midoriya, he truly is an amazing hero, and he truly is that really good example of what the next generation of heroes could truly be. But that right there is the end of What If Deku had a godly gravity quirk